This episode of the Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is your daily fantasy platform for player props. Now, Thrive Fantasy is offering our listeners an instant match on their first deposit of at least $20. Use promo code DTSN when signing up today. Start picking your props, racking up points, and winning cash prizes.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Wood, touchdown, LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Caught, touchdown, Tyler Higbee. It's Michael Brockers who gets there. A'Shawn Robinson. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Taylor Rapp, who had one taken away, will take this into the end zone.
Henderson with a good run and a first down, still on his feet. Safety in the arms of Leonard Floyd. Up top, touchdown, Van Jefferson. Terrell Lewis.
Everett in stride. Wow!
Hit behind the line. Terrell Burgess, 26.
Gets Bryson Hopkins at the goal line and in for his second touchdown.
Malcolm Brown into the end zone.
Abu Khan with the strip sack.
Picked off by Troy Hill.
Akers with a stiff arm. Akers into the end zone. Cam Akers.
LA will play for the Lombardi.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And I'm going to keep it real with you guys. Jake and I were just talking and we stopped ourselves and we were like, we just need to hit the record button so that way we are saying everything to each other for the first time on the show. Jake and I have not even discussed our thoughts on this game with each other. I think we can kind of sense each other's mood and the collective mood of Rams fans right now. But guys, the Rams just lost 24-16 to the San Francisco 49ers, a division rival, in a game that essentially was a must win for the 49ers, because honestly, had the 49ers lost this game, it would have been really hard for them to get back in the playoff race between us, them, and the Seahawks, maybe even the Cardinals at this point. Probably not, but we'll see. And it was just, Jake, this is one of those games. And guys, this is one of those games where we simply got outplayed. And Jake and I are going to get into it. There's a lot of different things that went wrong, a lot of different things that we should have done better. But the truth is, we got outplayed. We got outplayed in every aspect. And we got outplayed by a 49ers team that is literally statistically the most injured team in the league. We lost to a 49ers team that, and I don't have the list in front of me. I think Jake does. Their injury report of guys who are out for the season, of how many starters they have out for the season, is literally insane. We've talked about it on this podcast. It's actually kind of heartbreaking if you're a 49ers fan, but I mean, they managed to win. They outplayed us. And I think the best way, Jake, that we should go about this is we should just break it kind of down by position. I think we should start with the defense. And I don't want to ramble on, but I'm going to throw out the phrase that I've been saying again since week one is Rams run defense. And you and I have felt very differently about this, but the Rams run defense might not have cost us the entire game, but the last play of the game that put the nail in the coffin is because we couldn't stop the run. So what were your thoughts on our defense overall, Jake, specifically our run defense?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of weird for me because this defense is so bizarre how you can kind of look at the stats and you'd be like, well, they didn't really play all that bad if you're looking at the stats. They held Raheem Mostert to 65 yards on 17 carries, which is a 3.8 yards per carry average. They held so again, nobody went over 100 yards once again. They went over 120 yards of total, rushing offense. But the craziest thing, Alexis, is that, believe it or not, they actually had 3.3 yards per carry, which is a terrible average. And, by virtue, I mean, you'd have to look at the defense and be like, well, they played a decent game. Actually, that's a really good game, 3.3 yards per carry. But I think the thing about this run defense and why you're really against this run defense is because situationally this defense doesn't stop the run when need be. Throughout the game, they do, and that's why the stats look good. But the 122 yards rushing on 37 carries and 3.3 yard average doesn't matter, in that crunch time moment, the 3rd and 8 to stop the game, to give yourself an opportunity. And so they're a team that has notoriously given up the 3rd and long, even before Brandon Staley came to town. So, this is, once again, I don't think they're a bad run defensive team. I think they're a bad situational run defensive team. And what I mean by that is, the end of the game when you have, Deebo Samuel, getting that end around and basically plowing his way for a first down. I mean, he got that ball 2 yards or 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And they weren't able to stop him. And if they stop him, the Rams have an opportunity to drive down the field and potentially, tie this thing up and send it to OT. So to not get that done is a huge loss. But the defense as a whole, I think to me, the biggest issue is that you can, point fingers at the secondary all you want, but it comes down to the lack of pass rush. It comes down to the fact that, Brandon Staley is opting to essentially go off ball all the time when you have one of the most physical cornerbacks to ever play this sport in Jalen Ramsey, and you're not allowing him to play press coverage. You're not allowing him to play and get right in a guy's grill. And I think we all know that. I mean, that's how the Rams were, even with Wade Phillips. But, that lack of tenacity and not letting, those guys, play that way when you're not getting that pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, Garoppolo is basically just a guy that's sitting there in the pocket, not being touched, and you're asking the tall task of this defense to hold, this receiving game. You hold all these guys, Kittle, Samuel, Bourne, Ayuk, Mostert. You're asking them to hold all these guys in check while Garoppolo essentially has all day to throw the football. It's just never going to work. So I think those two things are the biggest component of why this defense struggled tonight. It's again, they have been able to win games and escape games despite not having pass rush. I know people will point out the fact they had 8 sacks last week, but one of those guys was the greatest defensive player maybe ever in Aaron Donald. The other guy, Troy Reader, wasn't on the field, and another guy, Ja'Kai Polite, they barely play. So aside from those 3, they weren't getting pressure on the outside, and now it's starting to finally bleed through, show up, and actually add into the L column.
Well, you talk about playing off guys, and that is also exposing another weakness, which is the tackling issue. And you can argue that the tackling issue is because we're giving X amount of feet to the offensive player, right? Because the problem is, I think what a lot of Rams fans are frustrated with is, fine, for whatever reason, because we already, like you mentioned, you have a bad pass rush. So the quarterback is completing a pass, but then it seems like every time someone on the other team catches the ball, it takes us forever to get them down. I mean, whether it's because they're breaking through several our defenders because they're not tackling them, or because there's simply no defender there. It's really just atrocious. And that was what killed us tonight. I can't tell you how many times I felt like it just took forever to bring somebody down. It's just, our tackling is just abysmal. And another issue, so you talk about the pass rush. One of the reasons I think why it's so important for the Rams to have a good pass rush is because we have Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was double teamed every single play tonight. You watch Tim, they were obviously, naturally, because he's Aaron Donald, they have to double team him, right? So you need other guys who can step up, who are going to be able to break free and get to the quarterback, and it just wasn't happening because we don't have that pass rush. We don't have anybody that's really consistently able to step up and make big plays when Aaron Donald's covered, which is why Aaron Donald kind of always does it himself. There's really, for whatever reason, nobody else. And again, I'm going to say this, I don't care if we had won this game or not. I want 4 up front. And I know everyone might be sick of me saying that. There's literally and again, I know you and I disagree on this. There's literally no reason in my mind why we should have 3 up front. We do not have the talent up there anymore. We only have Aaron Donald. And it's especially a team that is struggling with the pass rush. Why are you making it harder on yourself? Like, I don't know why the Rams defense thinks that they have any business playing 3 up front instead of 4 right now. It's really frustrating. I do honestly think that before the season ends that they might go back to 4 up front. It's frustrating to me to watch 3 up front, especially because it's giving Aaron Donald even less help. I don't think it makes any sense, especially the middle of our defense is such a weakness. That linebacker middle linebacking core is just, they're not it right now. But yeah, I mean, I think we covered, as far as defense, that was frustrating. But what is even more surprising to me about this game is the defense. Unfortunately, to me, they played a lot. In my opinion, they played worse than I thought they were going to play. But I thought the offense would play better. So let's start with the offense. Let's break down the offense, and let's start with Jared Goff, because he had a couple great plays. But overall, he did not play well. I mean, he had the amazing touchdown to Reynolds, but it was kind of too little too late. Towards the end of the game, he was making those quick passes consistently. But to start off the game, he just did not look right. I mean, he was throwing balls to areas where there was no receiver. He was missing open receivers, and it didn't seem like he was himself, honestly, from what I've seen so far from him this season. And I don't know if that's because he was back in his hometown. He's back in the San Francisco area. I don't know what it was, but he looked super off. But what were your thoughts on how Goff played tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Goff definitely struggled. He, had some flashes here and there, but he always does. He has the arm talent. He has the overall talent to always do that. And, I always love seeing him climb the pocket and, his maneuvering in the pocket. I think is definitely something I always enjoy watching because he is getting better at that. But Chris Collinsworth on the broadcast did mention that they are really trying to push the envelope and really fix Jared Goff's mechanics, speaking, mainly about his base and his legs. And, he tends to have a really wide base when he starts getting, foot, kind of, jumping around with his feet. When he gets bouncy in the pocket, he tends to kind of do somewhat of a split a little bit where he has such a wide base and it forces him to kind of be a little off balance and throw, a ball over, someone's head. But I think in this one, Goff did a nice job of eluding pressure. He didn't do a nice job of, connecting when he had that time. Again, made some nice throws, sure, but you're an NFL quarterback, so I'm not going to give that to you. You have to make those throws. And if you want to be the franchise quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams, who are now, 4-2, yeah, you're going to have to make those throws. Goff just wasn't it tonight. He wasn't what they needed. I get, it might not be brought up enough. It might be brought up too much, but I get the traveling probably had something to do with, the way I don't feel like all these guys were playing the best they normally play. So, I mean, that definitely could have something to do with it, but I'm not going to give any excuses. I think Jared Goff has had a really good year so far, and this is kind of back to the 2019 Jared Goff we saw. Kind of looked like he was a little rattled at times. Once again, Goff is like that guy where, at the end of the game, you look at his stats and you're like, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, didn't look that bad. But I thought he played a lot worse than his stats show. On Garoppolo's side, I thought the stats looked a lot better than he played because I think to me, he was really just check down Charlie the majority of the game. Just dumping off passes, screens. And, I think you have to give credit where credit's due to Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan has Sean McVay's number. I don't believe Sean McVay has beaten Kyle Shanahan since Kyle Shanahan has had a healthy quarterback. Since Kyle Shanahan has had Jimmy Garoppolo or, again, a healthy quarterback. I don't believe so. If I'm wrong, let me know. But Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number. And once again, Jimmy Garoppolo, was helped out by, the play calling of Shanahan, made it really easy on somebody that's dealing with a high ankle sprain. We talked about in the previous show, I brought up Sam Bradford and how, he had such an issue when he was starting for the Rams in 2011 with that high ankle, mainly because I didn't feel like they did enough, they didn't do enough with that Rams offense to really help him out. They didn't, make things easy for him. The 49ers made things easy for Garoppolo tonight. He comes away with 268 yards, 23 of 33, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, don't get me wrong, he did a nice job of not turning over the football, but things were a lot easier on him, and he has the weapons where, like, as long as you get it to Kittle in space, I mean, we saw Kittle and, he looked dead to rights and was able to, juke 2 linebackers out and not only get the first down, but then, gain a ton of yards after that. And plus the touchdown he had, the 44-yard touchdown. So, I mean, they have these guys, and that's really the way this 49ers team wanted to build. They wanted to grab guys that didn't just win at the point of attack, but they won, and they were strong enough to not only continue the catch process, but be able to run after the catch and put themselves in position to set up a long run. And, I think it was all kicked off, if you want my honest opinion, from the get-go when Deebo Samuel didn't go down and the Rams thought they had him. I thought that is what really just sent everything into a frenzy, and I think the 49ers just really built off that momentum early on, and they didn't let it go.
Yeah, they certainly were the more consistent team as far as momentum goes and things like that. And you're right. I mean, there was never a time in this game that they were trailing or really even close to it. And we talk about Jared Goff not being at this game. You know what was it? The running game, specifically Darrell Henderson. And I just felt like it was working when we were running the ball, and we just weren't running the ball enough. I don't know why that is. That seems to be something that McVay does. He seems to tend to lean towards the passing game. I feel like he kind of got better with that this season so far, and I felt like he kind of let that go tonight, which was a little confusing to me because I feel like the 49ers run stop, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like phenomenal. Like, we were running the ball. So in my mind, I wish we would have continued to run the ball. I don't know why we weren't doing that. It is important to note that Akers was not in a lot tonight. And I don't think that necessarily means anything. I know that some people might wonder if he's still hurt or anything. And I don't really think that's what it means. I think they're just being a little bit conservative with his injury, because it's going to take time for him to be 100% with that rib injury. So I don't think that that's any cause for concern. But as far as the offense goes, it was just disappointing. It was lackluster. There wasn't enough opportunity created. I mean, the best play of the game was the touchdown to Josh Reynolds, and I feel like, it was great, but like, why did we wait until the last hour to do that? I mean, it just, I wish we would have played more consistently. But something that I want to bring up, because I've been the one to bring it up on every episode, and you've agreed with me, is the kicking game, Jake.
Oh, Lord.
You know what? Here's the thing. Here's what's so frustrating about this. I believe, and Jake, I think you have this number in front of you probably. I believe he's missed in 6 weeks. He has missed 6 extra points, right? So, and it's almost always the first extra point of the game. And what was so frustrating about that, it's always frustrating when a kicker misses extra points, especially when he's doing it every week, like Sam Sloman is. What's frustrating is, to me, ultimately the Rams ended up not putting together that comeback drive after the Reynolds touchdown, and that was on our defense. But had they, we would have had to go for 2. So here's why kickers matter. They matter because had Sam Sloman not missed that extra point like he does every week, the Rams, all they would have had to do, if our defense had gotten that stop, which again, they ended up not doing it, was the Rams just would have had to go down and get a touchdown. Instead, what would have happened is, if the defense had made the stop, the Rams would have had to go get the touchdown and then go for 2 to tie it. So kickers matter. It's a big deal when you have a guy who's missing extra points every week. Okay, it's different when a guy misses an extra point once or twice a season. But when he's missing an extra point every week and still has his job, that's concerning to me. I mean, Jake, do you think that the Rams address this, or do you think Sean McVay keeps him after this week?
I mean, I would have to imagine that they're going to stick with him because, I at this point, I don't think that they're going to even bother addressing the kicker position. I just don't. I think if they somehow thought that he was this special guy, I mean, I remember a story coming out about Bonamego, and he's now the special teams coordinator. The guy that's, consistently has the 26th ranked special teams every year, and he's been fired 6 times. That guy. He did a similar thing. I don't remember exactly the name of the kicker, but there was a similar thing that happened to the Lions where there was a kicker that he wasn't the best in camp, but then, a report came out and said that, like the Lions or whatever were like, yeah, he really earned it in the last week of camp. And so every fan was like, what? He wasn't the best in preseason. Like, are you kidding me? And then sure enough, he was awful. And so it's very like, I forget exactly who it is and I'll have to look it up, but the parallels are there with Samuel Sloman. And I mean, I personally just can't stand watching him kick a field goal. I said it on Twitter, and maybe it's, unfair to go with superlatives, but through 6 games, can you name a worse starter in the history of this franchise than Samuel Sloman as the Rams starting kicker in 2020? Because I can't.
No.
I think you can think of guys that would be in the same breath, like a Justin King from the St. Louis Rams, Craig Dahl with, Jeff Fisher's Rams. Obviously Greg Robinson comes to mind. But as far as like, I don't know. I mean, I think he is so bad to the point where it's just, Greg Robinson wasn't even, I mean, there were times where Greg Robinson would have, some good moments here and there. You maybe have a good rep in, the run blocking department. He wasn't the greatest in pass pro, but like Samuel Sloman hasn't had a highlight. He nails a 42-yard field goal, and it's like, oh, we're going to use that to justify why he made the roster. It's like, come on now.
Well, the thing is, it's not like this is a quarterback that we drafted. And, with quarterbacks or really any other position, you're like, okay, we need to give them a season to get into rhythm. Because it's obviously different in any position going from college to the NFL. I mean, it's different. It's more intense and it's way harder. Kicking is no different. However, kicking is not, it's just not as hard. It's really like, at this point, there are guys, and I promise you there are guys right now who aren't in the NFL that would make every single field goal. It's just a different skill set, and I don't even know how to explain it. But like, it's not hard to find a guy who's a consistent kicker. Like, you don't need to find a guy who's going to make it 10 out of 10 times, but you need to find a guy that's at least going to make it 9 out of 10 times. You need to find a kicker that is consistent, and you need to find a kicker that doesn't literally scare you when he goes to kick a field goal, and could potentially be the reason that you've lost a game. I mean, that is the kind of kicker that Sam Sloman is. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the Rams are going to stick with him. I do think that McVay really likes him. And, I'm not trying to diss McVay, but I think McVay has his reasons for liking Sloman, whatever. I don't think that he's going to get rid of him. I think you're right. But it is frustrating. And it honestly makes me wish we would just go for 2 after every touchdown we get, because I think the odds would probably actually be better that we convert for 2 than kicking it with Sam Sloman.
Do you remember when the Steelers did that with Chris Boswell, when he got in his head and like he went from like Pro Bowl kicker to like he lost his mind and like the Steelers were going for 2 every single time? That's kind of how I felt. So I totally agree with you there. I do want to touch a little bit on Darrell Henderson, because I'm going to say something that I don't know if anybody has already said, but I think it's finally time to say it. Okay, so Darrell Henderson, in my opinion, was the best offensive player for the Rams tonight. Why he only got 14 carries when he averaged 6.3 yards per those carries is beyond me. But Darrell Henderson, if you give the ball, 2 times in the red zone there, instead of, trying to throw up whatever that was, that got intercepted, pretty much the only thing you can't do on 4th and 1 is throw an interception in the end zone and give them the ball at the 20. But, I just feel like if they handed it off to him more, they probably could have won this game. But that brings me to my next thing, and this might be bold to say. I think Sean McVay should give up play calling. I don't think that Sean McVay is as great of a play caller as he is a play designer. And I think the thing is that we as Rams fans are so used to Jeff Fisher and Rob Boris and Frank Signetti. And don't forget, Josh McDaniels when he didn't know how to call plays with the Rams and magically knew how to do it with the Patriots. I think Rams fans are so used to that, even still, even after having McVay since 2017, it's like Rams fans in general don't want to like be that guy and like be like, well, or be that girl, sorry, and say, well, McVay could be better. Okay, McVay is a savant. Okay, he is phenomenal and he knows offense like the back of his hand. But the thing is about McVay is I feel like he is a game planner. He's a schemer. He's like Mike Martz. But I don't feel like he calls plays like Mike Martz. I don't feel like he's the best play caller. He may have the best play, but I don't think he calls it at the best time. So I propose, and I mean, I'm not saying that this will go anywhere, but I'm saying that I think the Rams should have Kevin O'Connell as the primary play caller, and he and Sean McVay should get together like they're doing week in and week out and game plan and scheme. And that way you're getting Sean McVay. He's going to focus more on, the team overall. I think he'll be more focused on, say, timeouts and things on that nature. Because I feel like he'll just drop timeouts as a play caller and not really think about them as an overall game manager. And that is why that they only had one timeout going into the fourth quarter in a game that they were losing by 12. But I'll say that I think Kevin O'Connell, as the offensive coordinator, you get the best of both worlds. He has an opportunity to call plays. Sean McVay has the opportunity to have his plays called at the right time, and we all win. And I think to me, it's a lot. And I'm not saying Sean McVay can't call plays, but I'm saying if you want to maximize what the Rams have in Sean McVay, I think he should give up the play calling. I really do. I think he is a phenomenal schemer. I think he draws up some phenomenal plays, but doesn't call them, at the right times, and it's hurt the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something to think about. I would be open to that idea. I think the Rams should definitely try it because I think you're right. I think I do think that the play design is probably where he thrives more than the play calling. I think that that's something that, Rams fans can see. I mean, there's been numerous times every game this season, last season, where we just are questioning kind of the play call, why is he calling this? Why is he not calling this? So yeah, I mean, that's something that I've not really thought about. I definitely like the idea. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily something I see happening for a while. But I don't know. I think it would be a good idea to try. I don't necessarily know if I buy that will happen.
Oh yeah, I don't think it'll necessarily happen, maybe ever, but I thought I'd throw it out there. But yeah, thought provoking, isn't it?
It is thought provoking. I think it's a good thought for us to leave on. Let that resonate, Rams fans. Think about that a little bit. And Jake, if it happens, we'll say you're the first to call it, because that's the first time I've heard that suggestion. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has brought it up or not. But I haven't.
People have probably brought it up before. And I haven't seen it, but I mean, I just figured I'd throw it out there. It was my, it was my reaction to this game. I think, you see all these great play designs, and when you go back and you watch the film, you're like, wow, this is so creative. I mean, look at the way, but then, there are times that I just feel like Sean McVay either gets in his head, or just doesn't use the plays at the right times of using them. And I think, in this game, if you want me to be honest with you, I think the 49ers, we found out if you didn't already know, Fred Warner is phenomenal as a linebacker. I thought Dre Greenlaw, somebody that you, me, and Eric on the last episode all highlighted. I thought he played very well. But Emmanuel Mosley, we had the question for Eric, how big of a deal it would make, how huge it would be, if he played, because he was questionable. he was huge. He had 3 pass breakups, and you could just see his presence being felt from the get-go. I think it really helped out Jason Verrett. He wasn't on an island by himself, and I think it really just hurt the Rams by him being out there. They weren't really able to get much going, and when they did, they shot themselves in the foot in the red zone by Sean McVay's play calling. And let's not leave this podcast without mentioning that Cooper Kupp dropped 2 passes, one of which maybe you can blame Goff on a little bit. Maybe you can blame him. I don't know. It was kind of a bang bang thing where like he wasn't in position, but it was just kind of he didn't see the ball. It's a hard play. But when Goff throws the touchdown and Kupp drops it, that was on Kupp. And, he catches that pass and the game's a lot different. So, I definitely had to throw those out there. But, really appreciated seeing Josh Reynolds go up, climb the ladder and grab that football. Appreciated the work out of Darrell Henderson. And I appreciated, obviously I know the defense gets a lot of hate, but I appreciate the way they battled back and, they only gave up 3 points in the second half. And, it's a defense that we can, get riled up about stats and all that. And we can say that they're struggling in areas, but when push comes to shove, they gave the Rams at the end of the day an opportunity. The Rams offense struggled, only 198 passing yards. And the defense somehow, without much offense, held the 49ers that were clicking on all cylinders to 24 points. I think that's how I'm going to look at this game. And, look at this, like, again, it's a division rivalry. I get the 49ers got blown out last week by the Dolphins, but Jimmy Garoppolo looked a lot healthier. This team ultimately looked healthier, and having Emmanuel Mosley was huge for their defense. So it sucks that the Rams didn't have the opportunity, or they didn't take hold of the opportunity to knock the 49ers, potentially out of the playoff race. Because they do lose that tiebreaker now, losing the 49ers here. But I mean, there's a lot more games left. Maybe this will be kind of, a lesson learned from all of us that, look, it's at any given Sunday. And, in this league, the way the 49ers, got blown out last week, came back and, we're able to beat the Rams, and the way, we saw the Buccaneers, with the 4th down thing with Tom Brady on Thursday Night Football against the Bears, and to come back and just absolutely brutalize the Packers. This league is still trying to figure itself out. We're only 6 weeks in. The Rams are 4-2. The Rams could have been 5-1, but they're 4-2, and they need to make sure that they don't let this 4-2 turn into 4-3 and then 4-4. Because now all of a sudden, if that happens, you're starting to look at last year in just a little bit of a different way. So they have a tough game next week against the Bears. I think the Bears have proven that while they're kind of weird, they are for real. You have to respect a 5-1 team. You have to respect Nick Foles, a Super Bowl champion. So that's how I'm going to take it. The Rams have some positives from this game. They showed fight, but they also have a lot of negatives, and they're going to have a lot of proving to do next week on Monday Night Football.
Very true. It's definitely going to be an intense battle next week for sure. Monday Night Football, so another primetime game. I'm excited for it. I think I'm going to be able to watch that game with my grandpa, who is a Bears fan. So I'm excited to have a little friendly rivalry
Awesome.
in person for that game. Yeah. So, but yeah, you're right. They are a 5-1 team. So it's definitely, not going to be an easy win by any means. The Bears, like you said, they're kind of a weird team. Like they don't seem like they are like a super talented team, but yet they are winning, and you have to respect it. And you're right. It's kind of a big game for us. I definitely think we need a win, but that's going to be all from us, guys. As always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake on Twitter at JKBogan DTSN. We will be back later this week with a preview for our matchup against the Bears. But until then, you guys stay safe and take care.